given that everything is predetermined, right? If you become active politically, then do that. If you don't, then do that, because everything is predetermined, you know. But don't let yourself think that I should be doing something, but I'm not doing something, and so I'm guilt tripping myself. That's insanity, you know. Let everything happen the way it's happening. As far as Trump is concerned, the thing to do with that is to understand that this is the thing to understand about that will even help you to practice, right? He's not what's upsetting you. This is the thing that you have to recognize in order for the practice to work. He's not what's upsetting you. It's your mind that's upsetting you. And you're attributing it to him, but it's not him that's upsetting you. I mean, the evidence for that is that there are other people that are gleeful when they hear him. So he can't be the source of an upset. If he was, he'd be upsetting everybody. Right? So it's not him that's the upset, it's your mind that's upset. Right? And so that's always the case. It's never what's happening that's the source of the upset. It's the processing of it that goes on in your brain that's the source of the upset. It's your mind. Your personality and your mind are the same thing, by the way. Yeah, because your mind is your personality. Okay? And so it's your mind. And see, if you deal with it that way, then you're free to have compassion for him. Because he is hurting himself. He's not hurting anybody else, he's hurting himself. You know? What must it be like? Consider, what must it be like to be as rich as he is, be able to have anything you want, and you're not satisfied? Not only you're not satisfied, but you're miserable, and you're hateful, and you're upset, right? And you're acting like a child, right? What must it be like to live that life? That must be a real hell. That must be a real hell. And so the only thing, whether it's Trump or Hitler or, you know, anybody else, you know, these people are lost souls. They're lost souls. You know, the thing that Jesus Christ was alleged to have said on the cross applies to them. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. He has no idea what he's doing. He has no idea. He's 100% involved in his identity. That's obvious. All you have to do is look at him. He's 100% involved in his identity. So that's a sad thing. And the thing that's even sadder than that are the millions of people that can relate to him because they see themselves in him. If I'm a racist and he's a racist, I like him. He's like me. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's an interesting thing. It's like David said last night, we live in a very dark period right now. And so you can look at it in terms of that's a bad thing, or you could look at it in terms of saying that that will give you a lot more opportunity to practice. Yeah? And experience the freedom that's available to you to be satisfied, peaceful, and happy regardless. Regardless, because what's this all about? What are these practices and teachings all about? It's very important to come back to this again and again and again. What they're about is understanding that the circumstances need not have any effect at all on you, no matter what they are. Stage 5 cancer, Trump, you know, whatever they are. Right? They need not have an effect on you. You know that he posted something on the website for Ithaca Zen Center. I think it's called Something to Keep in Mind, something like that. But you should go read that. He put that there on purpose, right? And in that thing that he put there, one of the statements in there is you should be practicing being prepared for losses. You should practicing being prepared for losses, because losses are coming. Yeah? And if you're not prepared for losses, you're going to expend a lot of time being upset. And if you're not prepared for losses and you don't understand the way things really work, you could suffer for years and years and years after somebody dies. You know, because you can't let go. You will lose this life. You know, you will lose this body. You know, these things are going to happen.
That's coming from the mind.
Everything's coming from the mind. Yeah? Except you. Unless you and the mind are the same thing, then then you got a problem, because there's no place to see what's going on from. I want you to understand what you're talking about, so that you actively, consciously practice this, right? What you're talking about is that you now can see your mind. Before you couldn't see your mind because you were in your mind. You couldn't see it. But now when you start to wake up and you realize that you are not your mind, you can begin to see your mind, and only when you start to see your mind do you realize how crazy it is. And when you were believing it, it was causing you to suffer. Right? And so this guy, and the thing that's interesting about this is that, again, this is another one of those things where they say, oh, people with bipolar illness, all you can do is medicate them. You can't help them, they're going to have states of manic, and they're going to have depressive states, they're going to be suicidal, and this, that, and the other thing. Right? That's only if they can't get free from identifying with that process that's happening in their mind. But if they can see it in their mind, right, then they stop being affected by it, because they realize, I am not what that's saying I am. So, it's true for bipolar illness, it's true for all the personality disorders, it's certainly true for the affective disorders like anxiety and depression. All you have to do is understand, if anxiety is a problem, when it comes up, look at it instead of be it. Instead of being anxious, just look at the anxiety. That's all. If you look at it without attachment to it, it will leave as quickly as it came, because you're not interfering with it. Anything that you resist or you reject, you're literally keeping it there. In order for something to stay there, right, in order for you to reject something or to resist something, you have to have that something, don't you? So you're keeping it there by resisting it and rejecting it. But if you see it for what it is, right, no matter what it is, if you see it for what it is, right, just look at it. You're just looking at it. You're not being it. You're not reacting to it. You're not trying to change it. You're not trying to control it. You're just aware of it. That's all. And the awareness that's aware of it has no preferences. The awareness that's aware of it doesn't care what happens. It doesn't care what happens, because no matter what happens, it's never going to affect the awareness, because the awareness is not a thing. It can't be affected because there is no thing to be affected. The awareness has no substance. That's the other thing he was talking about last night when he asked that question. In the beginning of the talk, when he said, where is the self? If the self isn't in the body, remember that? He was saying, where is the self? Right? Yeah. That was a trick question. He knew it was a trick question, right? But if you get what he was trying to get across with that, right? He was trying to get you to see that the self is never affected, right? Because the self has no substance. It is nowhere. It has no. How can it be affected when it doesn't exist as something that could be affected? It doesn't exist as something that could be affected. So it's nowhere. It's like saying, where's the space in this room? That's the same thing. Where's the space in this room? The other answer you could give, Ange has become one of his buddies. But that Ange's answer was correct, but it was theoretical, nowhere and everywhere, like that. If I had answered that question, I would have probably said here. Where's here? Here is here. But it's not a location. Do you understand? It's not a location. The awareness has no location, so you can't say, where is the self? It has no location. And yet, although that's the case, right, the good news, the understanding that comes from that is the understanding that it has no location, and you are that which has no location. You have no location. You're nowhere and everywhere. What these teachings are about the purpose of the teachings are to motivate you to practice. Because the teachings won't make a difference. Do you understand? To conceptually understand this won't make any difference at all. It won't change anything. That's one of the things that causes a lot of suffering for people, because they say, just like Bob did the other night, I understand this, how come everything's not different now? I understand this. Understanding is a booby prize. It doesn't change anything, right? The understanding has a function when it motivates you to practice, and when you practice, you experience what the concepts are talking about. And when you experience what the concepts are talking about, then there is a different experience. Then you start to relax. Then you start to be able to enjoy your life and stop surviving. Until you deal with death, you're surviving. You have to be surviving. We don't notice it, but you make sure you get food, don't you? That's surviving. You make sure you sleep at night, don't you? That's surviving. The personality, because the motivation of the personality is to be comfortable, not to practice. It's to avoid being uncomfortable. Yeah, because the personality doesn't want to be there when things are screwed up. It wants to get away, right? But the practice is to be there when things are screwed up, right? So that's why the understandings, the teaching and the understandings motivate you to be there when the shit hits the fan instead of run. Why? So you can practice. Practice what? Practice being unaffected by what's happening. Because if you are unaffected by what's happening, you're being yourself. If you're affected by what's happening, then the personality is still got you entangled. Right? And if that's the case, just wait it out. Like there are things that will come up that you can't avoid the upset. You're not there yet for that particular trigger, right? But when that's the case, the very least you can do is just watch it. Just look at it. That's all. That'll get you through, yeah. But the awareness isn't dealing with it at all. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So if you get upset, okay, what is the upset? It's a series of thoughts, it's a series of emotions, right, that are uncomfortable, right, that happen in the body, right? So if you're watching it, the witness is not involved. If a person witnesses a car accident, right, they're not involved in the accident. They just saw it, that's all. Right? But see, what you added to what you were saying was you had an investment in it. I'm just. See, that's involvement.
So it's not just like brushing it off. Like I see it, and I'm just not going to deal with it.
But you're not going to deal with it. You're not going to deal with it or not deal with it. You're not going to do anything with it. See, you have to understand your personality wants to be in this process. And so it's going to add, and brush it off. That's your personality claiming that's going to stay in this process. But the awareness that you are doesn't brush anything off. It doesn't go toward anything or away from anything. It just is where it is. It's just looking. It's not reacting. There may be a reaction, but it's not reacting. That's why this takes practice. Because when a reaction happens, you're so used to your being in the reaction. You're so used to it, right? That there will be times that you go into the reaction, you didn't even see that happening, and you're in the middle of it, right? And then you wake up and realize, oh shit, I'm being crazy. Right? And when you wake up and you see that, right, then just start watching. Just start watching. No involvement. No, you don't care whether it stays or goes. When I treat people for anxiety, when I treat people that have panic attacks, I tell them, here's how we're going to treat the panic attack. We're not going to do anything. When the panic attack comes, all I want you to do is be there and notice it and watch it. Just watch it. Let it happen. Don't resist it. If you have thoughts about it, that you don't like it, just see they're just thoughts. That's not the truth. Yeah? Just watch it. If you just watch it, it'll go. And if you just watch it, not only will it go, but it'll stop coming up. It'll stop coming up. Because what happens for people is they get anxiety, right? And then they don't want the anxiety, so they're anxious about being anxious. That's what happens. So the only way out of it is to just let it go. It'll end itself. You don't have to do anything with it.